The island that holds one of humanity's greatest mysteries. There's an isolated island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, more than 3,000 kilometers off the west coast of Chile. How and why were nearly 900 giant stone statues built, some of them more than 10 meters tall and weighing up to 80 tons? These are some of the questions that surround the place, which is one of the most fascinating destinations in the world. But what you don't know is that this island has a lot more to reveal than you might think. Are you ready? With a triangular shape and an approximate area of 163 square kilometers, this peculiar island is considered the most isolated place in the world since there is no other inhabited point near it. Discovered by Europeans in 1722 on Easter Sunday, this was the reason the place was named Easter Island, but its native inhabitants call it Rapa Nui, which means big island in their language. Easter Island came about from volcanic eruptions that happened roughly 3 million years ago. 4 volcanoes were instrumental in the formation of the island and are now inactive. Well, the first thing that catches the eye on this island are the famous stone statues referred to as moai by the natives. These sculptures symbolize the ancestors of the island's inhabitants and were raised between the 10th and 16th centuries. The moai are made of a volcanic rock called tufa, which is plentiful on the island. They take on human forms with large and elongated heads, prominent noses, long ears, and thick lips. Some sport cylindrical red stone hats called pukaos, which represent the power and status of the ancestors. But how were these statues crafted and moved to their final places? This remains one of the island's great mysteries, intriguing archaeologists and visitors for centuries. The most accepted theory is that the moai were carved in a quarry called Hanoharako on the east side of the island. There are about 400 unfinished or abandoned moai, some still attached to the bedrock. Some are still ready. The moai were transported by means of tree trunks or ropes to their house, which are the ceremonial platforms where they are displayed. The house are scattered all along the coast of the island, and some of them have as many as 15 moai lined up. However, this process was not easy at all. It is estimated that each moai took about a year to carve and transport. Furthermore, it took a lot of strength and coordination to move the stones and statues without damaging or knocking them over. For this reason, some researchers believe that the moai were brought to their sites using a rocking and rotating technique. An interesting detail is that the Rapa Nui used the force of gravity and balancing techniques to move these moai in a circular motion similar to the sliding of a refrigerator. Others suggest that the moai were placed on wooden platforms with wheels and mats and pushed or pulled by groups of people. And why did the islanders put so much effort into building these statues? What was their significance to their culture and religion? These are other questions with no definitive answers, but there are 2 most likely hypotheses. One is that the moai were a way to honor ancestors and ensure their protection of fertility for the island. The other is that the moai were a form of competition between the different clans on the island who vied for prestige and scarce resources. Also, did you know that the huge statues that exist there have bodies buried underground? Yes, it's true. For a long time, people believed the moai were merely giant heads, but in actuality, they have full bodies, inclusive of arms, hands, and even belly buttons. These bodies have been concealed underground for centuries due to the action of time and sediment accumulation. However, in recent years, archaeologists have unearthed some of these bodies and made surprising discoveries. The bodies of the moai have inscriptions, tattoos, and details carved into the stone that represent symbols of the Rapa Nui culture. They also display different shapes and sizes, demonstrating the diversity and inventiveness of the builders. Some bodies are incomplete or damaged, likely due to wars or earthquakes. But what's most impressive is that some bodies are over 10 meters in length, meaning the statues are over 20 meters tall in total. Now the question arises, how were these bodies buried? It's likely that the Rapa Nui purposely buried the moai bodies as a way to protect them or honor them, possibly as tombs. But there's also another possibility that the bodies were covered by the actions of winds, rains and earthquakes, moving the earth and hiding the statues. However, a question still hangs in the air. What happened to this fascinating civilization? How did it decline and nearly disappear? It's believed that the island was populated around 1200 by Polynesian navigators who arrived in wooden canoes. These Polynesian navigators found an incredibly beautiful island with many green and fertile plants. Upon their arrival, they organized themselves into groups referred to as clans, totaling about 12. These people developed a rich and complex culture, their own language, a religion centered around the worship of ancestors and deities, and distinctive art symbolized by the moai and other artifacts. However, beginning from the 16th century, the island started experiencing a series of environmental and societal issues leading to its downfall. One primary factor was the deforestation of the island due to the excessive utilization of timber. Without trees, the island lost its plant life, which resulted in soil erosion. This led to a decrease in agricultural production. With not enough food, the population faced a crisis and began fighting for resources. Internal wars became frequent and violent, and many moai were toppled or damaged by rivals. But the problems did not stop there. From 1722, when the island was discovered by Dutch explorer Jacob Roggeveen, it was visited by several European navigators who brought diseases unknown to the natives, such as smallpox and tuberculosis. Many inhabitants died or fell ill because of these diseases. In addition, Europeans also exploited and mistreated the natives, taking some of them as slaves or oddities. Some were returned to the island after international pressure, but brought with them a smallpox epidemic that decimated nearly all the survivors. By 1877, there were only 111 inhabitants left on the island. And from the 21st century, the island began garnering attention from scientists and tourists interested in its mysteries and beauties. Many moai have been restored and erected again in their original places thanks to the work of researchers and activists as a way of honoring ancestral history. Easter Island has been declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site and welcomes thousands of tourists every year who are fascinated by its beauty and mysteries. Well, will we ever know everything that really happened on Easter Island? Will we ever understand the true meaning and message of the moai? Who knows, right? Perhaps they're just an invitation to look at the past and learn from it. Or even that they're merely a challenge to our imagination and curiosity. And you, what do you think?